The first 3 sentences will hit like a cold truth. You have been chasing signals that vanish. You have been proving your interest while you lose your ground. Now here is the shift. The chase is not a measure of desire. It is a measure of supply and attention given away. The chase looks like effort, but the real cost is the loss of composure. The chase creates a cycle. The cycle tells the other person that your availability is unlimited. The cycle lowers your perceived value. The chain reaction starts with the simplest thing: a message sent too soon, a read receipt that demands an answer, a double text that feels like rescue. That is the moment where the game changes, and not in your favor. And this is where it gets real. Picture this: a few lines on a screen, a timestamp, an unanswered message. The appetite for immediate response pushes you to act. You frame your worth by how fast you reply. You frame your desire by how many messages you send. That is how over-investing begins. That is how signals become noise. That is how the other person steps back and the dynamic reverses. You must see this as a leak in the ship. The leak looks small at first. It grows with every rushed reaction. That is the trap. You think more messages equal more interest. You think proximity equals influence. You believe that visible effort secures attachment. Those are short-term plays. Those plays cost your long-term anchor. The real power is patience that is quiet, not passive. The real power is distance that is intentional, not punishing. The real power is the ability to be present without needing presence in return. So look closer. The person who can do this holds leverage because they show steadiness under absence. Here is what most men miss. They confuse silence with weakness. They confuse distance with disinterest. They miss that absence framed by confidence increases curiosity. They miss that when you stop inflating your availability, others must decide what they want. The truth is simple and underused. You have 2 currencies. One is attention. The other is inner calm. Spend attention sparingly. Grow inner calm deliberately. The moment you control these 2 things, you control the conversation without needing more words. This is why it hurts. Because the habit of chasing feels productive. It feels like doing something. It makes the nervous brain less anxious for a minute. That temporary relief comes at the cost of long-term clarity. You trade a moment of comfort for a pattern that reduces your options. You reduce your dignity while you try to restore connection. Now connect the dots. The energy you spend chasing could fund your life. It could buy a new routine. It could reclaim mornings. It could make you more interesting. That is the silent bargain you make when you do not change. So the question becomes this: how does a man stop the automatic reflex to fix every silence? How does he stop the urge to explain his value in real time? The answer starts in the inside. It starts where attention is produced. It starts with a simple practice of delayed response and internal checking. And the practice must be small. It must be repeatable. It must feel doable every single day. The reason it works is not mystical. It is behavioral. It retrains the nervous system. It rewires expectation. And the lesson is simple. Stop telling your story by phone. Start telling your story with your actions. Stop trying to manage other people with messages. Start managing your own state. The shift will look like less interaction at first. The shift will feel risky. The shift will also create change. The change is that others must reevaluate. The change is that distance becomes a signal, not a punishment. The change is that you become the person who is steady, whether someone answers or does not. Now take this seriously. In the last few years, the medium of dating became a machine for attention. Apps reward constant showing. Social media rewards immediacy. Text threads make small moments feel huge. That environment creates false urgency. That environment fools the instinct that more contact equals greater connection. The real connection grows where restraint meets consistency. The text you do not send builds mystery. The date you do not chase creates return interest. The life you build outside of the message thread creates magnetism inside it. Now here is the shift. Consider a scene. A message arrives at night. The brain tightens. The thumb hovers. The mind composes the perfect reply. The man replies instantly because he fears losing a chance. The person on the other end reads and moves on. The man waits and then replies again. That pattern becomes a script. That script tells the other person that the man is the script. Break the script. Leave space. Do not react to every ping. Let the rhythm slow. Let the other person notice the new tempo. The tempo will have a cost at first and then a benefit. That benefit is respect in the form of curiosity. And this is where it gets real. Consider a dating app scenario. Profiles scroll like a buffet. The instinct is to respond quickly to any match. The instinct is to try to compress the courtship into a set of messages that prove compatibility. The mistake is obvious when you stop and look. Quick responses erase desire. They collapse tension. They remove an opportunity for the other person to imagine you. Give space on the app. Move toward a concise, direct plan rather than a long script. Suggest a meeting with a clear time. That clarity costs less and creates more forward momentum. It also shifts you from needy to decisive. That is the trap. Men confuse availability with generosity. They confuse being reachable with being desirable. That is understandable, because social reward often equates visibility with value. The correction is to value less visible things. Value your free hours. Value your unshared thoughts. Value the parts of your life that are not for immediate broadcast. This creates texture. That texture is attractive. It is not a trick. It is an honest recalibration of priorities. The person who has a life has less time to chase. That lack of time becomes a statement. So look closer. A breakup aftermath is a clinical place to learn this. After a split, many men will do anything to repair what was lost. They will call at odd hours. They will create long messages that try to explain feelings. Those actions are understandable. They also do not work. The repair that matters grows slowly. It grows when the man invests in his daily structure. It grows when he stops leaning on the relationship as the sole source of emotional regulation. The person who learns this returns with a quieter version of himself. That quieter version has more pull because it is stable. Here is what most men miss. They search for formulas that promise immediate return. They want scripts that guarantee the right words. They want quick wins. The problem is the context of attraction is not a script. It is a dynamic. Dynamics are made of signals, timing, and narrative. You cannot control the narrative of the other person. You can control your signals and your timing. You can control how you show up in the room, on the app, and in the gym. That control is the locus of power that actually changes outcomes. This is why it hurts. Because correcting the pattern requires losing small comforts. It requires tolerating uncertainty. It requires letting silence stand for a while. That is painful. The urge to fill silence is wired into the nervous system. It feels safer to act. It feels safer to keep conversation alive. The paradox is that the safer route is often the riskier one in the long run. The safer route ties you to outcomes that you cannot secure. The new route builds freedom by reducing reactivity. Now connect the dots. The practical path begins with 3 reliable moves. First, delay. Wait before you respond to non-urgent messages. Second, narrow. Do not create long explanation chains in text. Keep messages brief and directional. Third, invest. Use the energy you would spend composing messages to improve one area of life. These moves are simple. They are not easy because habit resistance exists. That is why repetition matters. That is why practice beats intention. So the question becomes this: how long do you delay, and when do you re-engage? The answer depends on your life. A simple rule works. If the message is logistic, respond within a day. If the message is emotional and you feel triggered, do not respond immediately. Sleep on it. If you are tempted to send a message to test, do not. Testing rewires the other person to expect tests. Testing erodes intrinsic attraction. Replace tests with presence in the world. That presence will speak for you without 1,000 words. And the lesson is simple. The practice of measured absence is not a passive withdrawal. It is an active shaping of the environment you live in. It is a choice to conserve attention for what matters. It is a practice of self-governance. The man who does this will notice fewer frantic nights and clearer days. The man who does this will notice his social circle becoming smaller and deeper. He will notice offers arrive rather than him having to pitch constantly. Now take this seriously. Let us add another scene for clarity. Imagine the gym after work. A man focuses on sets. He is present. He does not check the phone between reps. He does not scroll through feeds. He leaves the device in his bag. The result is simple. He becomes calmer. His posture changes. He carries attention differently into interactions after the workout. That silent change registers. Others notice the calm. They confront it with curiosity. That is the same mechanism that distance creates in relationships. When your attention is elsewhere, you signal a life that is not defined by response. Now here is the shift. The mental training exercise is practical and short. Step 1. Pause for 10 full breaths when a message triggers you. Step 2. Label the emotion in one word. Step 3. Decide one action that aligns with your values rather than your fear. For instance, choosing a short, calm reply, or choosing to leave the message unanswered until a planned window. Repeat this process twice a day for 2 weeks. The exercise rewires the reflex. It teaches you to create breathing space. It teaches you to test desire rather than to assume scarcity. That training is not theatrical. It is neurobehavioral. It works by creating a new habit loop. And this is where it gets real. There is a pattern in work life that mirrors dating. The man who chases approval at work accepts tasks that do not fit his priorities. He over-explains in meetings. He emails too quickly. He consumes his credibility by frantic energy. The remedy is the same. Slow down your responses. Be concise. Prioritize output over visible effort. The result will be fewer demands and more respect. The people who lead with calm voice get through friction with less cost. That is the trap. Many men will read this and think this is some manipulation technique. It is not. This is not about trying to control another person. This is about controlling your own attention and making choices that protect your peace. Use the word influence. Use strategy as a tool to conserve dignity. Think of distance as an instrument of personal calibration. The goal is not to force a result. The goal is to create conditions where people choose you because you are stable. So look closer. Do not confuse strategy with selfishness. Strategy becomes selfish only if it is used to harm. When it is aligned with respect, it is a boundary. When it is a boundary, it protects the other person from your need to make them responsible for your mood. That is a gift. The calmer man gives space without abandonment. The calmer man shows a life that can expand to include someone else rather than rely on them to complete it. That contrast is palpable. Here is what most men miss. The smallest visible acts create the largest emotional shifts. A late reply is not the end. A pattern of late replies that reflect a full life is attractive. A text that reads like an emergency is not attractive. A text that reads like a plan is attractive. This is not a trick. It is a matter of living a life worth the attention you request. The skill is to do this without bravado. The skill is to do this without a press release. The skill is to be quietly compelling. This is why it hurts. Because it asks you to do less visible work and more inward work. That inward work includes daily routines, small improvements, and the humility to accept that immediate control is illusionary. It also includes the courage to be unknown for a while. The courage to be unknown is the hardest part. The reward is that your identity becomes less dependent on response. The reward is that you show up more fully when you do engage. Now connect the dots. The next practical set of moves concerns how to communicate once you re-engage. Keep messages short. Keep proposals direct. Convert long threads into a single meeting offer. If the person is responsive, move the interaction to a clear plan within 3 messages. If the person is not responsive, do not force the script. Allow time and then check once with a short message that offers a single option. That approach is crisp and humane. It is decisive without being harsh. It teaches the other person that you manage your time. So the question becomes this. What about pride and ego when someone does not respond? Pride can push you to prove worth. The antidote is curiosity. Ask, what does this teach me about the person and about my standards? If their behavior conflicts with your standards, hold your line. If their behavior is a temporary overload, choose clarity. Do not rewrite reality to fit wishful thinking. Do not create a false story that preserves hope while you pay the cost. That is not stoic. That is not strategy. That is avoidance. And the lesson is simple. Treat attraction like a garden that needs seasons. Some things grow quickly. Some things require time. Your job is to tend the soil and do the daily work. The soil is your life. Water it with routines. Fertilize it with learning. Remove weeds by stopping approval chasing. The garden rule is practical and literal. The man who does small, steady things will outlast the man who chases in bursts. Now take this seriously. The climactic wisdom in all of this is compact. A single line from the old Stoics lands with weight because it frames what is inside your control. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. That line is not an ornament. It is a tool. It forces you to look inward. It forces you to choose the thought that reduces chasing. It forces you to choose the thought that values measured absence as a form of self-respect. Now here is the shift. After that clarity, the practical steps become a plan you can live. Week 1 is about awareness. Track how many times you respond within an hour. Notice the trigger moments. Week 2 is about structure. Set rules for reply windows. Week 3 is about substitution. Replace checking with work on a skill or a hobby. Week 4 is about review. Notice the difference in how people react. Notice the change in your own mood. The plan is iterative. It does not promise instant miracles. It promises sustainable change, and this is where it gets real. Expect pushback. People will test the new boundaries. Some will withdraw. Some will return with more interest. Some will mirror the calmer pace. That feedback is data. Treat it as such. Do not take it as a verdict. The verdict that matters is your consistency. The person who cannot tolerate your boundaries will reveal incompatibility early. That is a kindness in its own way. That is the trap. Many men think boundaries are about winning. Boundaries are about clarity. Boundaries help you see who fits into your life and who does not. They reduce wasted time. They increase alignment. They preserve dignity. The man who practices this will have fewer frenetic nights and deeper days. You will also attract people who prefer integrity. That is the ultimate payoff. So look closer. The final piece is simple social calibration. Use presence at work and at the gym to anchor your rhythm. Use small rituals in the morning to set tone for the day. Use the breathing drill before you pick up the phone. Do not make major decisions from a reactive state. The simplest choice is often the best choice. The simplest practice repeated becomes a signature. The signature shows up in posture, tone, and availability. Here is what most men miss. They expect external tricks to do heavy lifting. The truth is nothing external can replace interior stability. The practice of distance converts into magnetism only when rooted in a life that is intentional. The more you live with quiet purpose, the less you will need to prove worth. The less you need to prove worth, the more real choice will arrive. This is why it hurts, because you must forego the short relief of frantic contact and choose the longer path of inner work. It requires discipline. It requires humility. It requires the willingness to look small in the moment in order to stand larger later. That is the essence of Stoic training applied to modern relationships. Now connect the dots. If you apply these moves, you will notice patterns change. Messages will arrive that feel clearer. Dates will feel more mutual. Social circles will respect the new steady presence. Most importantly, your own sense of self will stop hinging on immediate outcomes. You will own a calmer baseline. That baseline makes attraction cleaner and relationships clearer. So the question becomes this: will you trade a short burst of attention for a life that magnifies your dignity? Will you move from reactive to decisive? The decision is practical. Start small. Use the breathing drill. Delay replies on non-urgent messages. Convert long threads into 3 decisive moves. Invest the freed time into real growth. That is the work. That is the practice that changes the outcome. And the lesson is simple. Once the habit is formed, you will not need to police every silence. You will not need to manufacture value in real time. Value will be evident in how you hold your days. Value will be evident in your speech and in your absence. Value will be evident in your capacity to keep your center when others pull away. Now take this seriously. If this resonated, take one action now. Pick one text thread that is stalled and decide your next move with the 3-step rule. Pause for 10 breaths. Label the feeling. Choose one clear action that protects your calm. Then carry on with your day. Do not rework the script. Do not fill the silence with more messages. Let the new tempo do its work. And this is where it gets real. If you practice this consistently, you will see fewer cycles of anxiety. You will see more moments of genuine choice. You will notice the people who persist are those worth keeping. You will notice the rest fall away with less drama. That clearing is itself a form of progress. The clarity you gain is worth the brief discomfort of change. That is the trap we avoid. We avoid confusing action with value. We avoid the urge to rescue every moment. We learn to conserve our attention for what actually builds life. we learn that presence is not the opposite of absence. Presence and absence together form a rhythm that creates attraction. The choice is to master that rhythm. So look closer. The final invitation is not to be cruel. It is not to play games. It is to be steady. It is to act from values, not from panic. It is to show up in ways that attract rather than cling. Those are the skills that last. Those are the skills that turn silence into curiosity and distance into respect. This is the closing request. If this message helped, like and subscribe and leave one line in the comments about the single habit you will change this week. Help others by sharing one practical takeaway. The channel will continue to give short, hard guidance on how to hold your life with more dignity. This is Stoic Truth, where silence becomes strength.